Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters Encounters video. Once again, I'm doing another one of these in here within the reddit.com website. They're from a newer Reddit that I found called Backwoods Creepy. The reason why I like that subreddit is because it continues to be a nice mishmash of things. So you could have a story that's related to the world of ghosts and spirits, or maybe even aliens, UFOs. And in this case, this has to do with cryptids and monsters. The reason why I picked it also is because it highlights a cryptid that I talked about years ago, but this time from another location. So same type of cryptid, different location. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's share this encounter. It comes from a user by the name of Clyde 2003, and they titled theirs as The Frogman from Barney Hot Springs. So let's go ahead and let's share that here, and then I'll give my own thoughts again later on afterward. So yes, the Frogman was actually one that I did a couple of years back. It was the Frogman from Loveland. Check it out if you haven't had a chance. Just click on the search function and you'll find it there. But that one was from Loveland. This one is from Barney Hot Springs. So let's see what they state. There is a little hot springs nestled near the peak of the Pam-Cimarai Pass in central Idaho. Though it is hidden in plain sight, sitting quite literally on the shoulder of the road, it is not a well-known attraction outside of the valley. But the local ranchers are quite familiar with Barney Hot Springs. It's not unusual to drive by on the weekends and see several families enjoying the water. Barney Hot Springs, or simply Barney's, is incredibly remote, even for Idaho standards. It's at least an hour of driving over rutty dirt roads to the small town of Salmon to the north. If you need a hospital, it's over 2 hours to the regional hospital in Idaho Falls to the south. To say you're in the middle of nowhere at Barney's is an understatement, but the seclusion is one of Barney's major drawing points. That and the odd abundance of tropical fish swimming in the year-round warm waters, so you can sit back, relax, and take in the surrounding views of the mighty Rocky Mountains with little in the way of distraction. But Barney's isn't at all it seems to be on the surface. An event 40 years ago turned this little hot spring from a local retreat to a local nightmare. On the afternoon of October 27th, two truckers stopped for fuel at my parents' gas station and cafe in Howey, Idaho. They were hauling a load of hay over the Pam-Cimarai Pass, headed for a delivery point somewhere in Utah. As the truck fueled, the two men settled down at the cafe counter and then ordered coffees. Sipping his coffee, the older trucker struck up a conversation with my mother and the regulars in the cafe. He seemed a bit on the edge, but was normal in comparison to his younger partner. That young man was clearly shaken and didn't say more than just a quiet, "Yes, ma'am," or "No, ma'am," to my mom. He kept his attention on the cup of coffee he cradled in his shaking hands. As the older trucker and the others conversed, he brought up a peculiar event that had happened to them that afternoon. So they had crested the Pam-Cimarai Pass and were coming down into the Little Lost Valley. As they approached Barney Hot Springs, there, standing in the middle of the road, was what looked to be a child. Bringing the truck to a stop, they soon realized in horror and fascination what was before them. It was not a child, but an odd humanoid figure. Its body was slim, with long, slender limbs and a squat little torso. The heads and eyes were large and amphibian-like. It was not standing any taller than a preschooler. They could see its green skin shimmer in the brilliant midday sun. Dripping with water, it was clutching a large bundle of what could only be described as hundreds of eggs. The creature watched the truck come to a stop, then awkwardly walked over the rest of the road and down an embankment. It was obvious from the trail of water it left behind that it had just come from Barney Hot Springs. On the other side of the road was a small stream hidden in dense willow bushes. No sooner had the creature disappeared, the two truckers were driving away as fast as their engine could take them. My mom and a few regulars at the cafe took in the man's story with silent, somber expressions and comforting head nods. This wasn't the first time that strange things had been witnessed in the Little Lost Valley. Of course, a frogman carrying his brood certainly was the most unique story they had heard in a long time. The regulars told the trucker not to get too worked up over the incident, as it could have been the autumn sun playing tricks on their eyes. The reassurance seemed to calm the men. They finished their coffees in a few quick gulps and then headed out the door. Now, my mom and the regulars had a good chuckle over the men's story and went on with their day. The following morning, on October 28th, one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded in Idaho struck that area. The Bora Peak earthquake was a magnitude 7.5 and could be felt hundreds of miles away. It destroyed farm infrastructure, roads, and bridges. It even killed 2 children on their way to school when a brick building in Challis, Idaho, collapsed on top of them. It was a horrific and frightening day for everyone in Idaho. Barney Hot Springs was not far from the earthquake's epicenter and did not escape its wrath. A couple of passing visitors near the springs that morning watched in amazement as the water drained into the earth, leaving behind a stinking, mucky hole. Minutes later, to their further astonishment, the water came splashing back into the depression, but now it was boiling hot. It was a truly bizarre geologic event to see. The boiling stopped immediately after the earthquake ceased, and the water at Barney's quickly cooled. It was now more of a warm springs, having permanently lost about 15 degrees of temperature after the earthquake. Now, the Frogman has been seen a handful of times since that initial sighting, always near Barney's and almost always standing in the road. I like to think that the Frogman was just a doting parent getting their babies out of harm's way before the earthquake struck and annihilated everything in that hot springs. Barney Hot Springs is still a widely popular spot for the locals. No one seems too bothered by the idea of sharing the water with a little odd amphibian man and his family. Someone even reintroduced a tropical fish after the boiling incident killed all of them. It remains just one of the many weird stories to come out of the Lost Rivers area of Idaho where I grew up. Then that's it. That's everything associated with this encounter. Again, it's from the user Clyde 2003, so let's talk about that here. Fascinating stuff, right? This encounter is very, very detailed. It reads almost like it's a news article of sorts, but apparently this user, his parents have that gas station, and then that gas station is located there in Howey, Idaho, but somewhere nearby is that Barney Hot Springs. I can picture it in my mind because, again, I traveled throughout Texas so frequently for my little ghost hunts. There are indeed little middle of nowhere towns, such as this one in and around Texas. I mean, it's amazing, like populations of less than 500. And then they even have areas there where it's normally 70, 75 miles an hour. And then it tells you go down to 55, then down to 35. And then boom, you suddenly hit this little tiny town for just a couple of blocks. Then that's it. Then you move past it and it's gone. That's the impression I got here, especially with those ruddy dirt roads as it was described and the hospital being about 2 hours away. I mention all this because having this area there, very remote, and then having Barney Hot Springs there as well would be a perfect place for this frogman to live. So the other one was the Loveland frogman, and this one again is the Barney Hot Springs. Very isolated, so this way this frogman and the eggs, or the family that it has, the quote-unquote family, could indeed stay there. And they could stay there very isolated and not have anyone do anything to them. I guess every now and then someone might spot them, as later on the user was mentioning that they are seen every now and then, but otherwise they just stay to themselves, don't cause any trouble to anyone else. And then that's it. But very fascinating, the fact that this was all in the daytime. These 2 truckers saw the frogman with the children, like the eggs, in other words, as it was walking slowly across the road. So it wasn't in the middle of the night. It wasn't something that could have been misinterpreted for something else. No, they saw it. They saw, with all the sunlight hitting it, exactly what they saw. It was, in other words, a little, almost childlike height size amphibian man, this humanoid creature, slim body, long slender limbs, squat little torso, but clearly the big head and the big eyes were all amphibian, just like a frog. And then there it went from point A to point B, and then that was it. And then the idea that it is intelligent enough to realize that something was going to happen just shortly afterward, like in other words, within 24 hours, when that earthquake struck. Not only that, but the largest earthquake ever recorded in Idaho, and it impacted that very same springs. Can you imagine that? This thing was intelligent enough to get out of there before something bad happened, and in this case, with the water receding and then coming back, boiling hot, it would have instantly killed the Frogman, and all of its children. So now it was able to go someplace else, at least temporarily, and then now it's seen coming back later on. That's the whole point. It goes to show how intelligent this creature is, and it's somewhere still out there to this day. Freaky stuff, but very fascinating. The idea, again, that there's these cryptids out there that are able to just live their lives out there as is, and then every now and then just be seen. And in this case, it was because of a natural disaster drawing it outwards. But does anyone know more info about that location? Again, it's called Barney Hot Springs. The Pacimarai Pass is somewhere nearby. And then there's another area, I think it's surrounding the area, the Rocky Mountains, if I'm not mistaken, another town that's called Salmon as well. So if you know all of those locations, and then there's one more, I think, called Little Lost Valley, let me know. That's exactly where you're going to need to be in order to have a chance to see this Frogman. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.